everyone, and welcome to the Confessions of a Teenage Witch podcast. My name is Ella and I am your host, and today we are doing our very first episode. So I'm really excited, but I'm also kind of nervous because I don't know how this is going to go. I've never done a podcast before, but I'm sure it's going to be really fun. For those of you who are watching or listening, I'm not used to saying listening instead of watching. For those of you who are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if you would like to see the video version of this podcast, you can on my YouTube channel, She Went Into the Woods. So just another option of listening if you want to watch it that way, because I much prefer watching a podcast. So the option is there if you would like to do that. But yes, I cannot believe that we are doing the first episode today. It's so crazy. And yeah, I've put a towel down. It should absorb the sound, and my room is a little bit messy, but I don't think you can see, but I'm sure it's going to be really fun. So I thought with the first episode we could talk about how I came to be this teenage witch, what teenage witchery looks like for me, as it is the type of witch that I am, because I often get asked what kind of witch I am, which is a whole other debate. I don't know if we will touch on that much today, but it is an interesting thing to look at. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about how I became a witch, also how I started YouTube, because I feel like the stories are quite intertwined, but I thought it would be a good idea for the first episode for you guys to get to know me in that way, so that with the other episodes I can just talk about anything random and my backstory. So yes, I have so many ideas for episode. It was so hard picking an episode idea for the first episode, because I just have so many ideas that aren't first episode kind of episodes. So yeah, anyway, so as I said, my name is Ella. I am 18, I'm from England, and I started some kind of witchcraft when I was 10. Also, can I just say quickly before I get into the story, I don't know if when I talk a bit louder the microphone sounds a bit crazy. I'm still getting used to using a microphone. I only got it the other day, so I'm sorry if my voice starts booming at some point and it hurts your ears. I'm still getting used to it. Anyway, I started some kind of witchcraft when I was 10, and I kind of discovered it because some of my friends were playing this game where they pretended that they had like elemental powers in the playground. So I wanted to join in with this game, and there was this girl and she was saying that she could tell you what element you were. So she did this thing where she like took your hand and she like put her hands on like the top and the bottom of your hand like that, and she would close her eyes and she would say you are like fire element. So she said that I was fire element, which is funny because I feel like I'm the least, no, not the least amount fire element. I would say I'm the least amount air element, because I really find it hard to connect with the element of air. And yeah, so she said that I was a fire element, so then I started playing the games pretending I had fire powers, and we just thought that it was like this fun game. But at some point, I went and I saw her again to talk to her about this game, and she said, "Oh, we don't do that anymore. That's witchcraft, and witchcraft is really dangerous." And I was like, what? I thought it was just a game. She was like, no, those elemental powers that we all had, that was all real, like magic is real. And I was confused, and she was like, we're doing witchcraft, and witches were burned at the stake, so we can't do witchcraft anymore because we'll get killed, or something like that. Or it sounded like that to me. I don't think she exactly said that we were actually going to get killed if we were just mucking about in the playground pretending that we had powers. But yeah, I was a bit confused at that point. So this was all around World Book Day of Year 5, so I was 10. And funnily enough, a couple of days before this, I'd started my YouTube channel. So I feel like these two very monumental things in my life that I started really close together, which I think is really crazy. And it just goes to show how formative these years of my life were, like the last 2 years of primary school, because I really discovered who I was, and I just cannot believe it was all at the same time that I started witchcraft and I started YouTube, because they are like the two biggest important things in my life, aside from science and all the career stuff that I want to do, like biology and whatever. So it was very, very interesting. And then a couple of months went past and I think we kind of forgot about magic, and then I was obsessed with fairies. I always had been when I was a child. I loved Tinkerbell growing up. I've got a little Tinkerbell here. I'm in the middle of sorting out my room. So yes, I was always obsessed with fairies and I always wanted to see a fairy. Now, still to this day, have I had any interactions with the fae? Absolutely not, but that's because I'm kind of tuned out to those kind of energies, because I've been revising non-stop for about 4 years. So I really wanted to see a fairy or meet fairies when I was in year 5, when I was around 10. So I looked online and I watched all of these silly YouTube videos and I found Spells of Magic. And Spells of Magic is very famous within the magical community of being like this website that we all got our information from in the early days. So yeah, I found a spell on Spells of Magic which said that you could summon anything you wanted, and that included fairies. So the spell involved drawing a circle out of chalk or out of salt in your garden. So I did it on my patio, and I think you just had to say a spell to kind of summon what you were summoning. So I tried to summon a fairy, and then it said that the next day you would find whatever you wanted to summon in the circle. Now, this didn't happen because magic doesn't work like that. Things can't just appear out of nowhere. Matter cannot be created nor destroyed. However, there are unusual occurrences, but I did not see a fairy from doing that. And I told my friend about it, and she said I should talk to the original friend that was talking about the witchcraft stuff. And she was like, I think it must have been the second time she said about witches being burnt at the stake, but I remember her saying it after she said that we should stop playing the elemental game. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah, she said, oh, that's witchcraft, that's really dangerous, you shouldn't do that. And I was just too intrigued, and I had then opened a can of worms by going on to Spells of Magic, and there was so many interesting spells, and I just started researching magic. I didn't really understand what it was, and it wouldn't be until like a couple years until I properly figured out what witchcraft was. Because I was still young, I still believed in fantasy and the supernatural in a kind of media way. So me and my friends went through phases where we thought that we could transform into Mako mermaids. So I ended up having a couple of years where I practiced a lot of magic that wasn't real, and it took me a long time to come to terms with that. But it was a fun time. It was fun to play make-believe, and it finally did make me learn real witchcraft. But it was really, really funny. So yeah, Spells of Magic. In the winter of that year, I got these little like post-it notes that were like probably, I'm going to reveal one of my video ideas, probably about this size. And what I'd do, I'd make little spell books out of the post-it notes that are about this size by ripping off like a couple of the post-it notes. I'm just going to rip off one because I don't want to waste them. And then I would fold it over at the top, and it would create this little book, and it would have lots of pages in it. And that's what I used as my first grimoires. So I would only really do spells that were really simple because I couldn't use candles or herbs when I was young. So I kind of stayed away from any spells that really required any ingredients, which is the reason why I was kind of not looking at real witchcraft for a couple of years, because I wasn't allowed candles. Thank God my parents thought that is not a good thing to let a 10-year-old muck about with. So I started learning all these little charms. So it would kind of be like spells like I want to be strong, and you'd say like, I have strength like 3 times and this would make you stronger. Now in hindsight, this is kind of magic in some kind of way. I was kind of saying affirmations when I was saying these spells, but they weren't like proper spells that most people do as magical practitioners, but it was magic for me, and I just found it really fun. Every lunchtime, every break time, all of the free times that I had on the computer at school, I would just be on Spells and Magic. I'd be printing out different spells. I'd even write a couple of my own spells and upload it to Spells and Magic, and somehow I got banned. I don't know why, but a couple of years ago I tried to log back into my account and it said I got banned for something. Maybe I was uploading fake spells. Although it is full of fake spells, so I don't know. But one of the funniest things that I found about my whole Spells and Magic era is that I made this spell to get willpower, and there is a comment on that spell from years and years ago from Hearth Witch, who is one of my favourite witchy content creators, saying that you can't do a spell for willpower, and I just think it's really funny that she actually saw my spell and thought that I was being serious when I was literally just 10 years old and I didn't really understand. But I just think that was really cool that she saw my spell, because she's such an important part of like the online witchy YouTube space. So yes, very interesting. So after having my Spells of Magic phase, I then discovered Fairy Truths. Now, Fairy Truths was this YouTuber, and I think you can still find her channel, and she used to teach you spells of how to become a fairy. It didn't once occur to me that this might be fake. I kind of just believed her because she was so convincing, and there was people in the comments who would say, oh, it worked for me, I'm now a fairy. And the first couple of months I knew about all of this, I was like, oh, I never want to be a fairy. It seems really sad, really quite emotionally intense, and something that I could never do. But then I got so obsessed with it, I was like, oh, I don't care. I just want to be a fairy. I think that I got so upset with the world because, like, I've always had really awful friends, and just been friends with people I shouldn't be, just because throughout school, especially secondary school, like, you kind of have to have friends, so that makes you be friends with people who you're not really good for each other and you don't really align with the same beliefs and the same kind of interests. So I kind of wanted to become a fairy to get away from the world, and to because I didn't want to be human anymore, because I guess I became a little bit emo. But through doing this, I got even more upset because the fairy spells wouldn't work, and I learned a lot. I literally wrote down almost everything that this woman said in her videos, and I tried it, and that's when I started making YouTube videos about my witchcraft, because before then I would be making videos about, oh my gosh, my first YouTube videos. So my first ever YouTube video was about loom bands, and then I did one about moshi monsters, and then I did a couple more, and then I started doing loads of ones about dolls, because me and my friends had this obsession with playing with baby dolls when we were like in year 5, which is a bit late for being interested in playing with baby dolls, but we thought that it was really fun. So I did a lot of videos about that, and I then thought, oh, I love doing this so much, that, like, witchcraft, well, it wasn't actually witchcraft, doing like fairy spells, I want to start making my own videos about fairy spells. So then I started spreading misinformation, which I still kind of feel a bit guilty about, but it's not my fault because I didn't understand. So and something funny is that so Fairy Truths wasn't on her own. She had 2 of her friends also have channels about fairies and how to become a fairy, and her one of her friends, her channel was called Confessions of a Fairy, and that was kind of a tiny bit of the inspiration for the name of this podcast, because I've always loved the word confession and like confessions. So yes, that kind of subconsciously was one of the reasons why I named this podcast that. So where are we in the story? This is so crazy. So yeah, I started making these fairy videos, and I stopped doing witchcraft. So for a while I was only into like fairy spells, and then when the summer rolled around I was mostly interested in mermaids, because me and my friends were like, oh my gosh, we've got mermaid powers just like Cleo from H2O. So I started making how to become a mermaid videos. I would do videos where I would do the spells to become a mermaid, blah 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 blah. So where are we next? I really hate telling this story because I always tell it wrong, or it's just, I thought I was bored of telling this story, but it's actually really fun. So yeah, then I started year 7. And what did I do in year 7? I think I carried on with the mermaid stuff and the fairy stuff, being interested in that. Oh yeah, gosh, that was for a long time. Because in year 8 I was making like a mermaid candle holder. So yeah, I was interested in that for a while, and then I think it was finally year 9 when I got into proper witchcraft. It must have been year 8. Yeah, it was year 8. I finally understood real witchcraft in year 8. And like in year 7 as well, I think this was when I started finding books in the works that taught you about witchcraft. Yeah, it must have been like Christmas of year 7 that I got my first ever witchcraft book, which is this one. Let me just grab it. It is The Witch's Journal by Celine Silverwind. And because this book isn't very long and very comprehensive, I thought this was it. Like, this was like the Holy Bible. I thought that there was no kind of, I can't think of anything else to say than a wiggle room. There was no wiggle room than to do exactly what this book told me. So I ended up learning stuff about altars that made me really restricted within my witchcraft practice. So I thought that having an altar, it had to be perfect. I thought that it had to be exactly what they taught you in this book about altars. So you had to cleanse with a certain type of incense. So I was like hunting down this incense. I remember going to this fair in my town and just searching everywhere for some sage, because I thought to be a proper witch you've got to have sage to be able to cleanse your space, when now I don't even use sage at all because it just completely wipes out all energy. So I thought this book taught me a lot about that you have to have certain stuff to be a witch. It felt like that reading it as a kid, because I think something I'd like to talk about more in another day is the way that school kind of has affected my magical practice, with the ways that I have to learn at school. I find it difficult to then switch over to learning witchcraft because it's a lot more informal. So when you're learning something at school, it's like, this is what it is, and like you can't change it. So it should be more liberating doing witchcraft, but sometimes it's more scary because there's not like a set way to do things. So I thought that I had to follow this because of how strict school is with when you're learning things. But this book did teach me a lot of stuff. It taught me about like being able to work with gods and goddesses. I didn't exactly understand what that looked like at the time. It taught me about planetary magic, but I didn't really understand it. Most of this stuff I read, I didn't really get it because I didn't get the wider context of it, because it's kind of a summary of the main witchcraft stuff. So yes, and then I started seeing lots of books about Wicca, and Wicca was kind of having its boom. As everyone knows at this point of time, Wicca was this big thing. It was the buzzword in the witchcraft community. So I thought I must be a Wiccan then, everyone's a Wiccan. Every book I pick up about witchcraft, it would be about Wicca. So I thought that witchcraft was Wicca. So then I started calling myself a Wiccan. I also realised that I really loved plants, so I started saying that I was a green Wiccan witch. And I kind of stuck with these titles until, or these labels, they're not exactly titles, until like 2 years ago when I kind of dropped them and I was like, I'll figure it out when I figure it out. So now I'm a teenage witch, which I'll talk about later. So yes, I feel like just as I started to get into witchcraft properly, I then hit a time in my life which was quite difficult, because I guess year 9, oh my gosh, year 9 I was so depressed. Really hard years. So yeah, year 9, most of it I had at school, and then there was COVID in March, so I only had half of that year that I actually went in, and I think COVID was the time. It's funny because COVID, you'd think that's the time when I actually picked up witchcraft, but I actually dropped it, and I didn't really do a lot of it for a while. And I did make content about witchcraft in COVID, but I wasn't properly into it because I always felt so disconnected to it. And I've always felt like I've kept trying to get witchcraft, but it keeps slipping through my fingers like sand, and I would never really understand truly what real witchcraft is. And I think that that's just a part of growing up and getting older. It took me a lot of years to kind of understand certain things about witchcraft, and also for a lot of years I couldn't really afford to buy loads of witchcraft books to learn about it. So I only had the internet, and it's only been in the last couple of years that we've had this abundance of online content creators about witchcraft. So, where are we in the story? So yes, then that takes us to the time when I didn't have an altar. This was a really strange time. I think then year 10, I wasn't interested in witchcraft really much anymore, and the only way I I was interested in it, I just felt like I wasn't good enough, so I was too scared to do anything, so then I just ended up stopping doing witchcraft, and instead I wrote a book about witches, as if they were real witches. So the book was about these like 5 girls at a British boarding school, and they discovered witchcraft, like real witchcraft, and they became real witches. So it was about real witchcraft instead of this fake supernatural witchcraft that we often get in books. So that was the way that I kind of carried on with witchcraft through that kind of period. But I had a period where I just didn't have an altar at all. Like, I got rid of it completely. And all of my magical belongings were kind of in my cupboards, because I felt like anything I did, it would never be good enough. So I then, after year 10, so throughout the whole of year 10, I wrote 2 books about these characters. I have still yet to go back and perfect the drafts that I wrote, and to finish this series, because it was going to be like 5 or 6 different books, each from the point of view of a different character. And so then in year 11, I kind of focused on YouTube and making music reaction content. So I didn't have a lot of time outside of that for witchcraft, because I was doing my GCSEs. And then at the end of my GCSEs, I then picked witchcraft back up. And I think throughout my A-levels, I kind of just watched content about it, and then in my final year of A-levels I kind of delved more into the spirituality side of it, because I didn't have, well, I could have found the time, but when I do witchcraft, I want to just do it for hours and not think about anything else. I didn't want to have to slot it into my schedule and be like, right, I've got an hour now to read this book and then I've got to go and do that. I wanted to wait until I had time, like now, where I can just be like, I've got the whole day, I can do whatever I want, I can research some herbs this morning, later I can go for a walk, and then in the evening I can read about astrology or whatever. With stuff like that, and it's the same with YouTube, I can't put it into a schedule. I have to do it for a couple of hours. It's more fun that way. It makes me feel more free. So as you guys know, I started this channel when I was at the end of my GCSEs, and then I kind of got scared of making bad content, and also because I didn't feel like a proper witch yet again in year 12, so I didn't make as much content. But then in year 13 I was like, right, I'm going to make a witchcraft video every single day and we're going to grow this channel and it's going to be great. And it wasn't until Christmas when Ivy the Occultist, she started the 12 Days of Yule challenge series type thing, where you made a video based off of the topic of the day, that I started making witchcraft videos again properly, and I started bringing in new viewers, and it was just incredible to see my growth, because I've been wanting to grow a YouTube channel ever since I started. Well, probably 3 years into when I started to realise, wow, I could actually grow this, I could have lots of viewers, and I grew from about 60 subscribers to about 500 in the space of like 3 or 4 months. And I was like, wow, this is what I've always been destined to create online. So then I quit my music reaction channel, which I'm actually going to go back to because I'd like to earn some money from some reactions. So that brings us to now, I guess. I took a couple of breaks. I took some break. What am I saying? I took a break from making content and from witchcraft through my actual A-levels. So now I'm free to do whatever I want. But I hope I covered the story well. I think it's really, really hard to tell it because I didn't have any notes. I was just trying to remember it. But that is the majority of the story. Throughout my journey, I have had many people who were my friends who wanted to become a witch too, so I would try and teach them witchcraft, but they would get bored or they would turn evil and start insulting me for doing it. So they're not my friends anymore. But anyway, I had a friend once who was also a witch, who was a witch before I knew them. So that's kind of the only person I've ever known who was a witch in real life, I guess. Everyone else I know, people online. I had a coven at one point, which was with that friend and a couple of other people who were interested in witchcraft, but that fizzled out. I don't really know those people anymore. And yeah, I think that is the story. I don't think there's any more to say. But yeah, with YouTube, I just absolutely love creating this content because I can edit it really nicely, I can share my journey, and I feel like there's so much magical things I haven't tried yet because I've been too scared or haven't had time or blah 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 blah, that now I have the time to do. They make great first time doing blah blah videos, so I'm really excited for that. There's loads of stuff like dowsing with dowsing rods I've always wanted to do, so if I get some dowsing rods, that'll be a fun video. Scrying, I've never tried scrying before, so that'll be a fun video. Tassiography, there's so many different things I can try that I've always wanted to try, but I've always been too scared in case it went wrong, or in case I just, I don't know. So I think that is that section of the video. Now we are going to move on to a segment which I have thought up, which is called My 3 Favourites. Now, I chose 3 because of Charmed. We have the power of 3. We also have the triquetra. So I think 3 is probably one of my favourite numbers within magic. And also you say some spells 3 times and then you say so mote it be. So yeah. So my 3 favourites are going to be 3 random favourite things that I have that week. So it's often going to be music, food, movies, YouTube channels, books that I'm reading, herbs I'm working with maybe, like literally anything that's my favourite that week. Or even like a favourite comment. So my first of my 3 favourites this week is Aurora's new album. Now this came out I think 2 weeks ago now, and it is so cool. I really, really love it. I was really, really scared because like I didn't really care that Aurora had a new album coming out because I just love all her other music so much, and it's kind of like that how can I love another child kind of thing, because I just love her other projects so much. I was like, how can I love more? How can it be as good as her other stuff? So I was kind of like going into it, and also because Aurora was the most kind of important artist that I reacted to on my reaction channel, so I kind of felt bad that I wasn't doing the reactions, but then I was like, I don't have time, and also, is it really worth it? Probably not. So I didn't do my reactions. I was actually on release day going to do an album reaction, but then I decided against it because I was like, revision for my A-levels is more important, and I just want to be able to enjoy this album without worrying if my opinions and my thoughts on this album is good enough. So yeah, what I really love about Aurora's new album is it really shows her writing, like as a person. She just is so selfless that most of this album isn't even about her and her experiences. It's about people and kind of the state of the world. It's called What Happened to the Heart, and it's kind of about how we've lost this connection to the heart and to love when we are tackling these big issues also in our day-to-day lives. So I thought it was such a beautiful poetic message, but I was kind of like, I guess I'll listen to this album when it's out, but like I'm not really that hyped for it because I just love The Gods We Can Touch. Like, it's one of my most favourite albums ever. Anyway, so yeah, I think it is a really, really cool album. The production on the songs is so cool. I love the different kind of sections of the album where we have this really cool like electronic kind of upbeat part near the end of the album. I haven't got the track list, so I can't really talk about the individual songs, but I love like Some Type of Skin. I really, really love what are the other ones? I'm so sleep deprived. What is that second song called on the album, the really fun one? Oh, I don't know. I'm so terrible. Why didn't I plan this? We'll have to talk about it next episode. But yeah, I absolutely love Aurora's new album. I definitely recommend you go and listen to it if you haven't already. The next one is a really, really silly one, and I keep getting really excited about this. I told each of my family members in turn about this because I was just so excited about it. And it's my lunch that I had yesterday. So I've been trying to be healthier now I've finished exams because I have been getting really sad about food and trigger warning, talking about eating and weight and food and stuff. But I felt like I was gaining so much weight because I was eating loads and loads of stuff to either feel less stressed about exams, and also because every time I would get a tiny bit hungry, I would have to eat because I couldn't concentrate if I was the tiniest bit hungry. So I was just constantly eating stuff just to stop feeling hungry, which I absolutely hated. It was really very annoying. And so yesterday I got really excited because I made a really, really nice healthy lunch, and it's kind of the beginning of me trying out all these different recipes. So I had a teriyaki chicken salad and it was incredible. I had it with spinach and chickpeas and little tomatoes, and I put chicken on it with teriyaki sauce, and it was so, so good. I might actually have that again for lunch today. And I also had it with hummus, and it is insane how obsessed with hummus I have become since the first time I tried it. I literally tried it like 2 months ago maybe. I was in Sainsbury's with my dad and I saw the hummus and I was like, I think that hummus might be something that I might like. So I said, can I try it? We bought it and then I tried it, and I am obsessed with hummus. I eat it almost every day and it's just so delicious. I never saw myself liking it because it looks so unappealing. It's just like blended up mush made of chickpeas, but since I started liking chickpeas, I thought, I might like hummus as well. And it's just been life-changing. I love it. I have it with like toasted pita bread and like little carrots, and it's so good. So I highly recommend that you try hummus if you haven't already. So yeah, that is that. And the final one of my 3 favourites, that was kind of 2, the salad and the hummus, but it's fine. Final one is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I absolutely love this movie. I rewatched it last week and it's just so beautiful. Like the way, I think it's just because I'm obsessed with the house that his friend lives in. Because there's like the big windows with the trees, and I would just love to live somewhere like that. But I just really love how funny this movie is. I love it that it's a John Hughes movie. If you don't know, it's about this guy called Ferris Bueller, and one day he decides to have off school, so he pretends that he's sick, and he takes his best friend and his girlfriend around Chicago, and they just go and do loads of crazy stuff. And throughout the whole film, the head teacher is trying to track him down because he thinks that he's not actually sick, when the whole school thinks that he's literally dying. Like, they think he's that ill, and it's brilliant. And but I remember it being more exciting, like the different activities that they did, but maybe it's because I'm rewatching it, it's not as exciting. But it's just such a genius film. You have a lot of like breaking the fourth wall where he talks directly to the camera, and I find it really inspiring as someone who creates videos to watch different things like this and get ideas for different shots and different concepts for videos. So yes, that is my favourite film this week. So that is that segment done. And the final segment that I created is called Confessions, and this will mainly be where I take one of your guys' confessions and I share it with the viewers. But this week, because I haven't asked anyone to send in any confessions, I'm going to have to make a confession of my own, and I don't know what I'm going to confess. So a confession can literally just be anything. It doesn't have to be like a confession like you've done something bad. It can just be like I had a really great day the other day, I did this, this and this. Or it can be like, I accidentally did this, or I'm in love with blah blah. I don't know. But I don't know, what could I confess? Like, I've literally not been doing anything. I've just been resting the last couple of days after my A-levels. I can't think of anything to confess. This is so bad. I should have something. This is my podcast. I should always have a confession to confess. I'm so sorry, this is so boring when I don't have anything to say and you guys just hear silence. I guess a confession to make is that my room is really, really messy and I can't believe the amount of stuff I've been hoarding. I've been hoarding empty witch boxes because I felt too bad for throwing them away. So it's only been like yesterday that I actually threw away the packaging. Like literally just the card you'd get with the charm bracelet. I would keep the card just because I felt bad for throwing it away because it was really pretty, and also because I paid lots of money for these witch boxes when I got them. So I have like these little charm boxes, and because they're so well made I don't want to throw them away. But I could keep a crystal in them. So yeah, I think the confession is that I am a bit of a hoarder. So that has been our first episode. I hope it has been interesting. I hope it has been fun to hear my story. I would love to hear your guys' stories in the comments. How did you discover witchcraft? And how much has your practice changed since you started? I'd love to hear your 3 favourites. What are your 3 favourite things this week? And I would love to hear your confessions so I can share them on the podcast next week, because it'll be really, really sad if I have to think up a confession for next week. That'll be really, really cringe. Oh gosh. So that is everything. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everyone who listened. And I will see you all next week, Friday, 5 p.m, back here. That's everything. Goodbye.